The soft glow of the candles flickered around the dining room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I could smell the faint trace of vanilla from the birthday cake, a scent that used to fill me with joy. Wrapped in delicate paper, my carefully chosen gift sat on the table, a small box that held more than just a trinket. It was a piece of my heart. I had envisioned my mother's face lighting up with delight, her laughter echoing through the room as she unwrapped it. But deep down, a nagging fear clawed at me. What if she didn't appreciate it? As my mother approached, I felt my pulse quicken, my heart pounding in rhythm with the anticipation. "Happy birthday, Mom," I beamed, forcing the words out with a bright smile, even as a wave of anxiety washed over me. Her eyes, however, seemed distant, as if she were already mentally somewhere else. The moment she unwrapped the gift, I held my breath, hoping for a spark of recognition, for her to see the thought and love I had poured into it. But when she simply glanced at the contents and shrugged, it felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving nothing but a heavy silence in its wake. That night, I replayed the moment over and over in my mind, the disappointment gnawing at my insides like a relentless tide. How could she be so dismissive? I had wanted to give her something meaningful, a symbol of our bond. But instead, it felt like I was just another fleeting thought in her busy life. The thought of her tossing it aside the next day felt unbearable. I could almost see the discarded gift lying among the trash, a stark reminder of my failure to connect with her. My emotions battled within me, a storm brewing as I grappled with feelings of betrayal and the urge to confront her. The next morning, as I stepped into the kitchen, the sight of the trash sent a jolt through me. There it was, my gift, carelessly discarded like it was nothing more than a piece of wrapping paper. My heart sank and I felt a fire ignite within me. I had never felt so unseen, so unvalued. I knew then that I had to address this hurt, that the moment had come for me to confront my mother about her actions, no matter how daunting it felt. It was time to bridge the chasm that had been widening between us, but the fear of rejection loomed large, casting a shadow over my resolve. The next morning, the sun filtered through the sheer curtains of my room, casting soft patterns on the walls, but its warmth did little to ease the chill in my heart. I was still riding the wave of excitement from the previous day's birthday party, where I had poured my soul into the gift for my mother, a delicate locket that held our family photo. I had envisioned her face lighting up, a moment of connection we both so desperately needed. But as I stepped into the kitchen, the sight that met my eyes shattered my dreams into a million pieces. There in the corner by the overflowing trash can was the locket, its silver surface dull and tarnished by neglect. My breath caught in my throat as a wave of disbelief washed over me. How could she? My hands trembled as I reached for it, the metal cold against my skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of the love I had hoped to share. I felt a knot of anger twisting in my stomach, a betrayal that cut deeper than any harsh word could. I remembered the countless times I had tried to connect with her, the moments where I had felt invisible in her shadow. My heart raced as I recalled her dismissive comments about my choices, the way she brushed aside my feelings as if they were mere inconveniences. I was tired of being overlooked, tired of feeling like a ghost in my own life. With each passing second, my emotions swelled anger, hurt, and a deep sense of betrayal. "Emma," my mother called from the living room, her voice light and carefree, completely unaware of the storm brewing within me. I hesitated, my heart pounding as I considered my next move. Should I confront her now or wait for the right moment? The thought of facing her made my palms sweat, but I knew I couldn't let this slide. I had to make her understand how much her actions affected me. As I stood there, the locket clutched tightly in my hand, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. Would this be the moment that finally changed things between us, or would it only deepen the rift? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. The locket, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a heavy anchor, dragging me toward an inevitable clash. The anger coursing through me was a reminder that I had to be heard, that my feelings mattered, and that this time I would not be silenced. The atmosphere in the dining room felt tense, heavy with unspoken words. The flickering candle on the table cast long shadows that danced across the walls, creating an almost surreal ambience. I could hear the soft clinking of silverware, but it felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the whirlwind of emotions brewing inside me. My mother's laughter rang out, bright and carefree, but it grated on my nerves, intensifying the storm within me. I was sitting on the edge of my seat, gripping the tablecloth as I prepared for the confrontation that felt as inevitable as the rising tide. "Mom, can we talk?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying the resolve I tried to muster. The conversation at the table paused and all eyes turned towards me, a spotlight illuminating my discomfort. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry as I fought against the urge to retreat into silence. "What is it, Emma?" she asked, her tone casual yet defensive, as if she expected an accusation rather than an honest conversation. I could see the flicker of irritation in her eyes, a subtle hint that she was ready to dismiss whatever I had to say. It was a wall I had to scale if I wanted to break through to her. I saw the gift, the one I gave you for my birthday. I found it in the trash, Mom. My words spilled out like a flood, a mixture of hurt and anger. I felt my heart racing, the emotional weight of my confession pressing down on me as I watched my mother's expression shift from surprise to defensiveness. It was an accident. I meant to throw away the wrapping paper. She shot back, her voice rising slightly, and I could feel the heat of her anger radiating across the table. The room felt like it had shrunk, the space between us charged with tension. I wanted to scream, but instead I clenched my fists, feeling the sharpness of my nails digging into my palms. You don't even realize how much that hurt me, do you? I pressed, my voice cracking slightly, the vulnerability slipping through my facade. That gift was important to me. It represented my feelings, my love for you, and you just tossed it aside like it meant nothing. I could hear my breath quickening, each inhale a reminder of the frustration building inside me. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words didn't come immediately. Instead, she looked away, as if searching for some validation from the walls around us. The silence hung heavy, thick with unresolved emotions. Suddenly, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with despair. Maybe this confrontation could lead us to understand each other better, or maybe it would deepen the rift that had been growing for years. The tension was palpable, and I could see my siblings exchanging glances, their faces a mixture of concern and confusion. The moment felt suspended in time, and I realized I had taken the first step toward addressing the emotions that had long been buried. I could only hope my mother would meet me halfway, but the uncertainty loomed large, casting a shadow over the fragile connection we shared. The family gathering felt more like a trial than a reunion. The familiar sense of baked goods and roasted vegetables wafted through the air, mingling with the tension that had settled into the corners of the room. As I stepped into the living room, the warmth of the sunlight streaming through the windows did little to lift the chill in my heart. My family was scattered around, engaged in light-hearted conversations, their laughter ringing out like jarring notes in a symphony where I felt decidedly out of tune. I hesitated at the threshold, my fingers twitching nervously at my sides, the fabric of my dress feeling constricting. I had planned to reach out to mend what had been broken, but doubt clawed at my insides. Would my mother even entertain the notion that I was hurting? I could already envision her dismissive smile, the way she would wave away my feelings as if they were nothing but a passing breeze. But as I took a deep breath, I steeled myself. I had to try. Mom, can we talk for a minute? I ventured, my voice barely rising above the chatter. My mother turned, her expression shifting from amusement to a fleeting look of confusion. Before she could respond, my brother chimed in with some joke, pulling her attention back to the group. My heart sank, the moment slipped away like sand through my fingers. After a few moments of awkward silence, I mustered the courage to approach her again. Mom, please, it's important to me. I tried to keep my tone light, but the urgency seeped through. She glanced at me, her eyes flickering with annoyance. Emma, can it wait? I'm in the middle of something here, she replied, her voice sharp and dismissive. The rejection felt like a physical blow, my chest tightening painfully as I fought to hold back the swell of emotions that threatened to spill over. I forced a smile, but the effort felt hollow. My mother returned to her conversation, and I stood there, a wave of disappointment crashing over me. I had hoped for understanding, for a moment of connection, but instead I was met with indifference. In that instant, I realized that reaching out would not be as simple as I had imagined. The weight of my unvoiced feelings pressed down on me, amplifying the sense of isolation that had grown between us. As the gathering continued, I felt like a spectator in my own life, watching the laughter and warmth of family moments unfold without me. I could see the affection between my siblings and my mother, a stark contrast to the icy barrier that had formed between us. The hope I had carried into the room began to fade, leaving only the bitter taste of vulnerability and disappointment. This wasn't how I had envisioned our reconciliation. With each passing moment, I felt the distance grow, a chasm that felt insurmountable. I needed to find a way to bridge that gap, but it was clear that my mother wasn't ready to acknowledge the hurt I felt. The tension lingered in the air, and I knew that the final trigger was still to come, a moment that would demand confrontation and resolution. The faint sound of rain pattering against my window was a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I sat on the edge of my bed, my fingers tracing the frayed edges of the quilt, a relic from childhood that once brought comfort but now felt like a reminder of my unresolved feelings. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, trying to ground myself in the present, but all I could think about was the discarded gift and the weight of my mother's indifference. Memories flooded my mind, each one sharper than the last. I remembered my mother's smile as she unwrapped the gift, the flicker of joy that quickly morphed into something akin to annoyance when she realized it wasn't a new handbag or a fancy gadget. I shuddered at the thought of that moment. The way her laughter echoed in my ears now felt like a cruel joke. I wanted her to cherish the gift, to see it as a token of my love, but instead, it had become just another burden in her life. Sitting there, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow wash over me. How could she be so dismissive? My heart ached for understanding, for a glimpse of the woman who had raised me, who had once nurtured my dreams. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had formed between us, but the fear of rejection held me back. What if she didn't care? As I pondered over my mother's actions, a flicker of realization ignited within me. I needed to confront this head-on. There had to be a reason behind her seemingly callous behavior, perhaps her own insecurities or pressures I had never considered. I felt a surge of resolve. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted to understand and heal. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over Sophie's name, needing her perspective. The call went through, and Sophie's cheerful voice filled the room, a stark contrast to the storm inside me. "Hey, Mia. How are you holding up?" Her bright tone made me smile, even if just for a moment. "Not great, honestly. I've been thinking about Mom and the gift. I need to talk to her, but I don't know how to start." There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost picture her furrowing her brow in thought. "You know, sometimes it helps to just lay it all out there, to be honest about how you feel. You have to let her know this matters to you. Maybe she'll surprise you," she encouraged, her optimism a small balm to my bruised spirit. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, the weight of my decision settling within me. I would approach this conversation not with anger but with an open heart, ready to face whatever came next. I hung up feeling slightly lighter, the path ahead still daunting but less intimidating. I realized I had to be brave and vulnerable. That was the only way I could hope to mend our fractured bond. The rain continued to fall, softly washing away remnants of doubt, while I steeled myself for the confrontation that lay ahead, ready to reclaim my voice and hopefully my mother's understanding. The following day, the air felt charged with an electric tension that I couldn't quite place. I sat in the living room, the sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains, casting soft shadows that danced across the walls. The familiar scent of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen, but instead of comforting, it felt like an unwelcome reminder of the day ahead. I ran my fingers nervously along the edges of the couch, the fabric rough against my skin, as I replayed the events of the night before in my head. My mother, Linda, had been unusually distant, and the discomfort in my chest grew heavier as I contemplated approaching her. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Emma, urging me to stay strong and reminding me that I needed to confront my mother about the discarded gift. I took a deep breath, the rising tide of anxiety threatening to drown me, but I knew I couldn't back down now. Later that afternoon, an unexpected event unfolded that would force Linda to face the consequences of her actions. I watched from the living room window as a delivery truck pulled up outside, and my heart raced in anticipation. The truck was filled with boxes, and I could see my mother emerging, her brow furrowed in confusion. As she approached, I caught a glimpse of the contents being unloaded. The items she had casually thrown away just the day before now returned as part of a mix-up. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. This was karma, a direct consequence of her thoughtless actions. I stood frozen for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the situation. Would this be the turning point? Would she finally understand the weight of her dismissiveness? I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat as I imagined confronting her at that moment, her surprise morphing into defensiveness. But deep down, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Perhaps this was the chance I needed to finally address the pain her actions had caused. As she opened the door, I steeled myself, preparing for the confrontation that awaited. My heart raced not just from fear, but from the anticipation of a long-overdue conversation that could finally bring resolution to our fractured relationship. I would not let this moment slip away. I would stand my ground and make my voice heard, no longer willing to be overlooked in my own family's narrative. As I sat cross-legged on my bed, the dim light filtering through the curtains cast gentle shadows across my cluttered room. The scattered remnants of my chaotic thoughts were reflected in the mess around me. Books, clothes, and half-finished projects lay abandoned, much like my feelings had been until now. The scent of lavender wafted from the diffuser, but it barely masked the tension that hung in the air. I was on the brink of a decision that could redefine my relationship with my mother. I grabbed my notebook, its pages filled with messy scribbles and doodles, a testament to my inner turmoil. With each stroke of the pen, I felt a flicker of determination igniting within me. I needed to articulate my thoughts clearly before the upcoming family meeting. What would I say? How could I convey the hurt I felt without resorting to accusations that might push her further away? I remembered Emma's words, her unwavering belief in my right to express myself, and it fueled my resolve. You need to find the right words, Emma, I whispered to myself, feeling the weight of those words settle around me. I began writing down my thoughts, carefully choosing each phrase, each sentence. Why wasn't I included? Echoed in my mind, a painful reminder of the past. I jotted down my feelings of betrayal and disappointment, each word a step closer to reclaiming my voice. Images of my mother's dismissive reactions from previous conversations flashed through my mind, the way she would roll her eyes or wave away my concerns as trivial. Would this time be different? I couldn't shake the nervousness curling in my stomach. My breath quickened as I imagined her surprise at my confrontation. What if she didn't understand? Just then, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Sophie checking in on me. I took a moment to compose myself before replying, sharing my fears about how my mother would react. Sophie's supportive messages were a beacon of light amidst the storm of doubt swirling in my mind. I knew I had to stay focused to prepare myself for the inevitable. I envisioned the family meeting, the dining room filled with tension, my heart pounding as I opened my mouth to speak. I would not be silenced this time. I would stand my ground, express my feelings, and push for acknowledgement. As I closed my notebook, the weight on my chest felt slightly lighter. I was ready to confront the painful truths that had long been buried beneath layers of silence. The family meeting was set in our living room, where the soft hues of the evening sun filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a golden glow over the familiar space that now felt charged with tension. I sat on the edge of the couch, my heart hammering against my ribs, the air thick with unspoken words. The scent of lavender from my diffuser hung in the air, a stark contrast to the heaviness settling in my chest. I could hear the rustling of my mother, Linda, as she prepared herself for what was about to unfold, her movements stiff with apprehension. As she entered the room, her expression was a mixture of defiance and concern, a reflection of the emotional walls she had built over the years. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment press down on me. Mom, we need to talk about what happened. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. My voice trembled slightly, betraying the resolve I was trying to muster. The silence that followed felt suffocating, stretching out like an eternity. What do you mean? She replied, her tone defensive, as if she were preparing for an attack. I could see the flinch in her eyes, a flicker of vulnerability that made me momentarily hesitate. You threw away my gift, Mom. That hurt me more than you realize. It felt like you discarded me, like I don't matter to you at all. My words hung in the air, raw and heavy, and I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, a mixture of anger and pain bubbling to the surface. I watched her face, searching for any sign of understanding, but instead I saw walls rising higher, her demeanor shifting from defensive to dismissive. You're being overly dramatic, Emma. It was just a gift, she shot back, her voice tinged with irritation. I could feel my heart sinking, that familiar sense of betrayal washing over me. No, Mom, it's not just about the gift. It's about how you treat me, how you ignore my feelings. I want to be seen, to be heard. I could feel the heat of my words, the passion behind them pushing me forward. For a moment, I thought I saw her falter, her eyes narrowing as she processed my outburst. The room was charged with tension, a battle of wills unfolding in the space between us. My breaths came quicker, each inhale a reminder of the years of silence that had built up to this moment. Finally, Linda's facade cracked, a flicker of realization crossing her face. I didn't mean to hurt you, Emma. I guess I thought you were fine. I didn't see how much this affected you. Her voice softened, and in that moment I felt a glimmer of hope. As we continued to talk, the walls between us seemed to shift, the tension slowly unraveling as we both began to understand each other's hurt. My heart swelled with a mix of apprehension and relief, knowing that perhaps this confrontation could lead us to a path of healing instead of further division. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about the gift or my feelings. It was about rebuilding the bridge that had been crumbling for too long. I was ready for that journey, ready to face the uncertainties ahead. The atmosphere in our home had shifted dramatically after that pivotal conversation. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of our shared meal, which had transformed from a battleground of emotions into a sanctuary of tentative hope. The air was thick with the aromas of lasagna and garlic bread, but what lingered most was the palpable sense of possibility that now filled the space. I could see my mother, Linda, sitting at the table, her demeanor softened, a stark contrast to the defensiveness that had defined our previous encounters. As we cleaned up together, I noticed a change in her movements. She no longer rushed through the tasks with impatience. Instead, she seemed to linger over the dishes, her hands moving thoughtfully. I caught her glancing my way, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of warmth in her gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the pain we had both endured. It was as if the walls we had built between us were gradually crumbling, revealing the vulnerability that lay beneath. Mia, I've been thinking about what you said, she began, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. My heart raced at the sound of her words, hope blooming within me. I leaned against the counter, bracing myself for the conversation I had longed for. I realize now that I've been so focused on my own expectations that I overlooked how you felt. I'm sorry for that. Her confession hung in the air, heavy yet freeing, as if she had lifted a weight we both had carried for too long. I felt a rush of emotion at her admission, a mixture of relief and gratitude. Thank you for saying that, Mom. It means a lot to me. I just want us to communicate better, to really see each other, I replied, my voice steady despite the trembling in my heart. In that moment, I understood that healing was a two-way street, and I was willing to put in the effort to rebuild our relationship. Days turned into weeks, and with each shared meal and casual conversation, I began to feel the bonds of our family strengthening. We spoke openly about our feelings, navigating the complexities of our relationship with newfound understanding. I could see the effort my mother was making, her willingness to listen growing each day. It was a slow process, but I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me, a belief that we could mend what had been broken. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch with Emma, I shared the progress we had made. The sun bathed us in warm light, and I felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. It's not perfect, but it feels like we're finally on the right path, I said, a smile breaking across my face. Emma grinned back, her eyes sparkling with pride. That's amazing, Mia. You deserve this happiness. Keep pushing for what you need. I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I had faced my fears and opened the door to healing, and now I was determined to nurture this growth. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it, knowing that our family could finally begin to heal together. In the aftermath of our emotional confrontation, the air in our home felt lighter, as if the burden of unspoken words had finally been lifted. I stood in the kitchen, the familiar scent of my mother's cooking enveloping me like a warm embrace, a stark contrast to the tension that had once permeated our family gatherings. Laughter echoed around me, gentle and genuine, as my siblings and I shared stories, the echoes of our past slowly transforming into a tapestry of shared memories. I felt a newfound appreciation for these moments, a realization that family wasn't just about the good times, but also about navigating the stormy waters together. As I watched my mother interact with my siblings, her laughter no longer tinged with defensiveness, I felt a swell of gratitude for the courage we had all shown. It was a journey of healing, one that required vulnerability and honesty, but it was worth every moment of discomfort. I reflected on how far we had come, from the painful silence to this vibrant exchange of love and understanding. Each shared smile felt like a brick